Let's rock.
Oh, we made it. That was quick. Boom. Welcome in here to the book club on the air. Let me get these in here so we can talk to each other. Welcome in here, folks. Hell yeah. Shelly coming through. Gabby's in here. Kasha. Madeline. Hell yeah. Oh, 49 chapters. Just check. There's also an epilogue and an afterword and an update chapter in my copy. So, okay. Have to go. I think we started. Yeah, that's a good point because I think I learned today. I think Jennifer, not Jennifer, Jessica for Justice was on X talking about how she had a copy that was, I guess, a little bit different. And then even when I was looking at the very beginning, some of them have chapters, some of them aren't called chapters. This one on mine's confusing because of the way I'm listening to it on YouTube. The person that's reading it. It made more sense for me to do just chapter 9 this week for folks that, if anybody just already wrote ahead and did 9 and 10, I apologize. We're going to be doing 10 and 11 next week. But welcome in here. What's going on? Bada bing, bada boom. We're hanging and banging.
Well, let me tell you something, brother. Hanging and banging.
Boom. I got some notes here. We're going to go over top of it. Let's go. Chapter 9 starts out. We were kind of left off where the last 2 chapters were brutal. It was pretty much about the murders and the victims. Starting to see how Anne Rule works with the police, how close she is to them, how she gets her stories for, books. So she's right on top of this unbeknownst to her, with working with the individual that is responsible for what's happening. Chapter 9 starts with Anne sitting with Captain Swindler in his office, June 74. So we're up to June 1974 now, when Joni Lenz and her father came into the homicide unit. Now, Joni Lenz was the first victim who lived, but had, traumatic injuries afterwards, memory loss. Anne says Swindler kept the victim's pics on his wall as a reminder of how intense this case was. So, Captain Swindler is on top of this, as you can imagine, if you can kind of picture it. I could definitely. The pictures of the victims behind him. Joni had volunteered to come in and look at the other girls' pics to see if she recognized any of them. So I'm still trying to get any kind of connection here. Joni was asked if she knew any of the girls by Swindler, with Joni's dad close by watching. After looking at the pics and studying them closely, she shook her head no. She had never seen them. Joni was having trouble remembering a lot after her January attack. So she was attacked 6 months previous to this, but seemed confident that she didn't know these girls. Anne tells a story about how someone had left their family while at the mall to go back to the car to get something, didn't return for a while, only for them to go outside and see some man carrying her away. She had been drugged also, but when the family yelled and he dropped her, could this have been Bundy? I wrote in the notes here. It was a weird little segment in here, that Anne was telling in this beginning portion of chapter 9. Anne goes on to say she wonders if this happened at all. She was talking about how the public coming forward with stories and freaked out since there was a killer on the run and active, which can cause mass hysteria, which that's also interesting that Anne's wondering if it's true at all, and I'm sitting here wondering if it could have been Bundy. So we're about to start getting into a new MO. What we're getting into is a freak day in 74 in July of Ted Bundy not being able to control himself, and he's losing complete control. He is going rampant with wanting to find a next victim. Hell yeah, nice. What's going on, Gamby Subs? What you doing? John, what's up, John? John's in a special stream, in a members only stream. Whoa. This is some pay-per-view action here. We're about to get wild up in here. Holy shit. You never know what could happen in here. I'm telling you right now.
I'm telling you like it is, baby.
On July 3rd, more than 100 representatives all over Washington and Oregon met in Olympia at Evergreen State College for a day-long brainstorming conference. Maybe if they all pull... Oh, man, there is one really weird part in this chapter. Maybe if they all pull their resources and put their heads together, they can find something to lead them into the right direction for capturing this killer. Anne was invited to this conference. Sheriff Don Redmond of Thurston County summed up the feeling in his opening remarks, says Anne. We want to show parents we really care. We want to find their children. We want people in the state of Washington, that they're going to have to give us a hand, actually. We need the eyes and the ears of the public out there. So yeah, they're wanting to get as much help as they can from the public here. Again, multiple missing girls at this point. Pretty large distance even, but some of them right on top of each other. He was trying to spread out. But again, what we're leading up to now is really crazy. Now they had another homicide of a teen named Brenda Baker. She was 15 and a hitchhiker. She had run away from home on May 25th. And on June 17th, her badly decomposed body had been found at the edge of Millersvania State Park. Police had at first thought this could be the body of a George Ann Hawkins. Remember from the last episode, the previous chapters, a victim. Dental charts proved it was Brenda Baker. The woman Bundy was taking all... The woman Bundy was taking all shared some of the same character traits. Each had long hair, parted down the middle. Each were white. Each was much more than average intelligence. Each had more than average intelligence. Each was slender, attractive. Each were highly talented. Each had disappeared within a week of midterms of the final exams at local colleges. Each came from a stable, loving family. Each disappearance took place in the hours of darkness. Each girl had been wearing slacks or jeans when they disappeared. In each case, the police didn't have one piece of physical evidence that might have been left by an abductor. So this is also leading into another person that Anne meets. I think you're getting into it right now, that gets into some astrology. She's an astrologist and has her own feelings about what's going on here. And again, this is before he was caught, before we knew what was going on. It didn't appear the police at this time, the victims were selected at random. It didn't appear to police at this time that the victims were selected at random. They also wondered if they maybe were seeking more than one man. Possibly a group of men or a cult grabbing and killing these women. During the spring of 74, there had been a rash of cattle mutilations. They would find the cows with just their sexual organs missing. Police began to wonder if this could be connected or some kind of devil worship, and start to meet with an astrologist who thinks the police should know something she had discovered. Get this, and if you have already read, of course you know this. This astrologist, who goes by the initials RL, invites Anne to her office and says her office was covered in papers with strange symbols on them. RL was trying to find a pattern for the murders and astrological patterns. She begins to talk about the sun signs. There are 12, and they approximately a month each year. This is our signs. And the moon passes through these signs every month. She shows Anne an astrology book that shows the phases of the moon last about 48 hours each month. Anne didn't understand what RL was trying to show her. She says there's a pattern. Linda Healy was taken when the moon was in a Taurus phase. From that point on, the girls vanished apparently in Pisces and Scorpio moon phases. RL says the chances of this happening are almost impossible. Anne couldn't wrap her head around this, and I'm not sure I can either. RL thinks the killer is doing this based on the moon's phases. At this point, RL pulls out a sealed envelope and says, I want you to give this to someone in charge, and this is not to be open until the weekend of July 13th through the 15th. Anne says to her, come on, they would laugh me out of the office. Anne does not want to do it. RL thinks the killer is going to go back to the moon phase Taurus and start a new cycle. Anne took the envelope but didn't promise she would give it to anyone. Says she don't know who she would give it to. And RL says you will find someone. So isn't that super interesting? And Anne puts this in her book here. What the fuck? But even more interesting is what's kind of to come here. Again, if you know, you know. Looking in the chat here for just a minute. Wildside coming in. Yeah, actually, man, a PB Stanley would rule, actually. I do have one with my name on it upstairs that I haven't washed in a while. I was using the hell out of it. But, not drinking beer for a random night here. Drinking a little water. Right, Pammy? Yeah. All right, let's keep moving. Anne had this Anne had this envelope in her pocket at this meeting that we were just talking about in the Evergreen State College with the police. She was still undecided if she was going to give the letter to anyone or even mention it. Swindler took over the meeting after a midday break. Captain Swindler, her friend, someone she knows, she had been talking to about multiple cases, including this one, and started asking if anyone had any connections they had made in the case. If anyone knows anything about numerology. Asked if anyone is a psychic. Anne thought he was joking, but he wasn't. Herb Swindler started to write on the blackboard the dates of the girls' disappearances and attempt to find a numerological link, but there seemed to be nothing that could be called a pattern. They start to go over the length of time between the abductions. The one thing that was glaring is that the dates between victims are getting closer and closer. Herb then asks if there is any other suggestions and even says he didn't care how crazy it might sound. Anne says at this point the letter was burning a hole in her purse. Anne raises her hand and mentions how her friend RL thinks there is an astrological pattern. She explains to the group of police that RL had what RL had told her. Anne mentions she had an envelope once asked if RL knew when the next victim would be picked. She mentions the envelope that is not to be opened until July 15th. So yeah, when the police asked, what's going on, Anne's got this envelope that she's now saying, you can't even open it until July 15th because that's her prediction that's in it to see if she's right. So that's already sounds insane. She could sense the audience was getting restless with her story. Anne passes the letter to Herb. The meeting went into different areas after this exchange, and now Anne is unsure of herself and doesn't think the room took her serious. Even after he said, if that's true, and he was saying, hey, however crazy it sounds, and she says this, come on, that's within the realm of anything at this point. Police start to try and think of who would these women feel like they could trust to let their guard down. A minister, policeman, fireman, doctor, ambulance attendant. The policeman got them thinking, could this be a rogue cop maybe? Again, this is them having that meeting out loud here in the Evergreen College. Or someone in a policeman's uniform. The next safe assumption is a woman would help a handicapped person. Someone maybe on crutches or in a cast. The police, frustrated, can't stop every man in this area, so the best thing they can do is warn the public with as much media saturation as possible. Ask for info from citizens, and to keep on working with the slightest tips that came in. Surely the person or persons who are doing this would make a slip up soon. So we're getting into right now, July 14th, 1974. Bundy goes fucking apeshit. There was a big day at the lake at Lake Shamish. I'm probably butchering that. Shamish State Park. A pretty young woman arrived at the park around 11:30 that morning. She was approached by a young man wearing a white t-shirt and blue jeans. She's approached by the man in a sling who asks if she can help him out. She says, sure. He says he needs help loading his sailboat. She agreed to help and walked with him to his Volkswagen Bug. She doesn't see a sailboat. She asks him, where's the boat? And he replies, I forgot to tell you. It's up at my folks' house. She told him she was already running late and her parents are waiting for her. He took the refusal to go to another location. He took the refusal to go to another location. She says, saying, I should have told you this, and it wasn't in the parking lot. This person seen someone else later talking to this man. This was Janet Oat. She was a probation caseworker. Janice was a small girl weighing 100 pounds and barely at 5 feet. She looked more like a high school student. Not long after Janice had gotten to the park to sunbathe, there was a man in a sling standing over the top of her. Some folks overheard the convo and said the man asked if she could help him with his sailboat. Again, same story this day. He was having trouble with his broken arm. Janice asked if the man could sit down and they could talk about it. People overheard this man say his name was Ted, given his real name as well. He said the boat was up by his parents' house. Janice explained she had her bike with her and she didn't know if she didn't want to leave it on the beach. Ted said there was room for it in the trunk of his car. She agreed to help Ted the last time anyone's seen Janice Oat alive. So now he's got... And he's not done. Hold on. Dude. Shamamish. Lake Shamamish. 18-year-old Denise Osland also went to the park this day. She went with her boyfriend and another couple. They were planning to have a picnic. About 4 p.m. in the day, hours after Janice Oat had already disappeared, a 16-year-old girl walking back to her friends after a stop at the park's restroom was approached by a man with his arm in a sling. Again, this man asked if she could help him launch his sailboat. She shook her head no, but this man tugged on her arm. Come on. She quickly walked off. Getting a little bit of aggressive on this one. This is after murdering someone, we have to presume. About 15 minutes later, another woman seen this man in the park asking another girl for a favor. This woman says she is in a hurry and her friends are waiting for her. He says that's okay, but stared at her for a few moments before walking off. Dennis had cooked out some hot dogs with her friends, and the men with them had fallen asleep. Denise goes to find the restroom. Remember, this is the person, Denise Oslin, who had come in to have the picnic. One of the last persons to see Denise alive seen her talking to someone in the park near the cinder block structure. They left together. So we already know what he's saying. The folks back at the campsite started to get restless and wondering where Denise was. She didn't take anything with her. Keys, shoes are still at the camp on the blanket. They continued to wait, but the sun started to go down. Just before 5 is when this convo had taken place with the same man and with his sling in an arm asked if she could help him, guess what, with a sailboat. As the evening wore on, the parking lot became empty and only Denise's car was left in the lot. The friends had searched the entire park with no sign. They hoped she had went off looking for her dog, who had disappeared and wandered off when they had gotten to the park earlier. Denise's boyfriend couldn't understand what was happening and didn't think she would just leave him like this without saying anything. They reported her disappearance to the park ranger at 8:30 that night. It was too late to search the lake or the park that night, but the next day an extensive search took place. Meanwhile, Janice Oates' husband was waiting on the phone for a phone call from his wife, one she had promised to make the night before. This is, remember, the other girl previously that we were mentioning that disappeared. Jim, her husband, dialed her number all evening to get no answer. Janice's husband, Jim, talked to Ann days later after this, and he was explaining that day/night when he was waiting for Janice to call him. He fell asleep, and when he woke up, he could hear Janice's voice as clear as day saying, "Help me." Yeah, this is weird. It's almost like he had a premonition that Janice was in trouble. And he was even talking about how they have this almost like psychic connection. And he says he dreamed that she was saying, "Help me." And the next morning he would find out that his wife was missing. And a letter Jim had just sent to Janice, she never received. And I guess that where they're so far apart, the long distance calls would be expensive, which is why they're doing calls and letters here. It's it's different now. Just call whoever. She'd never received. He was saying for her to be careful, and so the letter she didn't even receive, he was saying, be careful, don't trust anyone. He didn't want anything to happen to her, and you're my source of peace of mind. He said him and his wife was always close and had many thoughts at the same time. Going back to what I was just explaining, he was waiting on some sign of where she might be, but since that day when he had heard what he thought was Janice asking for help, he hadn't heard anything else. On July 15th, in his office, Captain Herb Swindler opened the sealed envelope. Now listen to this. A slip of paper read of the pattern continues. The next disappearance will happen on the weekend of July 13th through the 15th. Swindler felt a chill, and this prediction came true twice. So, holy shit. Who is this astrologist? And is there anything to this astrology angle? Because, I know the Ted Bundy stuff, but I don't know it this deeply, clearly, because there's so much stuff in here. I'm just like, what? So that was pretty freaking interesting. And then the Janice Oates husband has almost like a psychic freaking connection. Hey, D, what's up? Welcome in here. Hanging out in book club tonight. I think you're right. Dude, and these people were hitchhiking like crazy. There was even hitchhiking laws. I personally would never. I couldn't, honestly. I did when I was younger. I pitched up an older dude who I felt sorry for, but I always seen this dude. You know what I mean? It was in my hometown. I always seen the same dude. I didn't feel like he was going to kill anybody. But yeah. The only time I ever hitchhike was not even hitchhiking. I stepped out in front of this car and said, "You're either stopping or you're hitting me." It was dude, it's I don't even know. 2 or 3 in the morning. Didn't make it, ran out of gas, and it was cold as fuck. It was after my birthday, so it was sometime in October, dude, in Virginia, and I was far from home. I was just walking. I was like, fuck it, I'm going. But it would have taken so many hours to get home. And this car, or I think it was a truck actually, came coming down, dude. And I stood out in the middle of the fucking, I was like, bro. And it was an old dude. It was an old guy in a truck that didn't say a word to me, by the way. But took me home. He stopped. I got in. You could probably smell the dank in my pocket. But I wasn't going to leave that in the car. Dude, right? We need to talk. We need to get with some psychics. They're out and about. Gamies, I hitchhiked once, but that was before I knew about serial killers, and it was only to a farm a few roads over because I heard they had baby cows, and I wanted to pet them. All right, okay. Life on the line to pet a baby cow. That's hilarious. Damn, that's some Jason, that's some Friday the 13th shit right there. Shit. I'm telling you.
Hold up.
So yeah, next week, read chapter 10 and 11. And if anybody needs the link to what I'm doing, it's a YouTube chick. It's just reading these chapters out, and I'm really just making notes as I go. And I'll probably in the future, when I go further, because I'm not going to be able to find every book we read on YouTube, when I do start getting them via Audibly, because the best route for me is to be able to take notes like that. So, but no, man, this is really interesting. We're going to see where it keeps going here. And if there's 49 chapters, holy shit. I know they're pretty quick, though. Like, I know, like, even the next few are not long. We've gotten through a couple of long chapters, but mostly pretty fast. But, geez, 49 still seems like a large number. Well, you know, put it all out there. Put it all on the line. Damn, everybody in my chat is hitchhiking veterans out here. Let's go. An older couple picked me up one time. My brother left me in town, and I had already walked for like 5 or 10 miles home in the dark. Damn, that was me that night, because I was on a dark ass road. Dude, I'm not a religious person, but I got picked up right in front of a church. It was crazy. I always thought about that. I'm like, whoa. And this guy didn't talk. I was like, oh my God, what's happening? Well, that's not good either, Pammy. My God, you never know what could happen. Oh, an Audible, okay. Yeah, I'm doing it as I work, so it's perfect. And taking a break, taking notes. Wow, okay, we're on page 89, 400, so we are still early. Holy shit, okay. We're cooking, though. We're cooking. We're almost a quarter through this thing, so we'll be a quarter through this thing come next week. I like it. That's a pretty good pace. We'll have to figure out what we're going to have to do next. It's still early, though. Looking through the chat here. My bio mom picked up a couple of hitchhikers. When she dropped them off, the guy in the back got in the front. It was my bio dad. Thus the reason I have full blood sibs. Wow. Okay. Damn. Well, you never know. You never know. You never know what may happen, guys. You got to be careful out here. Got to be careful. That's all I do know. I'd be afraid to hitchhike. I'd be afraid either way, right? I'm afraid to pick up a hitchhiker who's probably going to stab me with a screwdriver. I'm afraid to hitchhike because that person's going to be like, oh, you're going to my house now. Oh, now you're chained up. All of a sudden, you're not moving. If you're running anybody that's got any kind of car without a fucking passenger seat, something's up. Even a back seat. But Bundy, like, he didn't have the passenger seat, something's up. And they're up to no good. I almost guarantee you. Okay, next week, chapter. Yo, Tiff, coming through. We're about to end this some bitch right now. We talk about hitchhiking and how scary it is. And everyone in here is veterans of the hitchhiking game. The next time you will see me should be Thursday night. The last 2 Thursdays I didn't have a show. Last week I went to the dentist. And I got to go to the dentist again on the 22nd, which I think that's Monday or Tuesday. But even after I went, I could have probably done a show that time. It wasn't terrible. It was a little bit tender, but it wasn't too bad, really. But it should be Thursday. I don't know. I'm thinking about maybe doing a cops night, hanging out. I'm trying to figure out what I'm doing Friday. I haven't actually reached out to anybody yet. A guest. And I'm trying to kind of think about who I might have on or who would want to come on, or I don't know. It'll come to me tomorrow. I got to make some decisions. Guys, thank y'all so much. Appreciate it. Yeah, Joe. Fuck yeah. I don't know. Can I send folks from a members only to Joe? I think so. Yeah, hold on. It's a good call, Shelly. Yeah, let's send them over there. Yeah, when you get there, let them know Buzz Nation sent you through. A Buzz Nation members only crew coming through. A crew coming through. You know what I'm saying, son. Theo Vaughn got his Patrick seat stolen. Yeah, Theo's awesome. I was watching a Theo clip earlier with, what's his name? Adam Devine, I think. All right. Love you guys. Thank y'all so much. Appreciate it. I will see you probably Thursday night. Let's go. Have a great rest of this evening and tomorrow. Let's go. Let's kick its ass. Boom. Love you guys.
Pittsburgh.